Hello folks, this is the deck tech for what I call Primal Soulherder. It's a combination of a very disruptive, almost Taxes style deck that also grinds incredibly hard as a mid-range and controlling deck, and you also have a combo option that can play out of a lot of different things. The deck has interaction for just about everything in the format and then some. I'll be going over the cards here. To start with, you have 4 Guide of Souls. Very obvious, the mana base on this deck is incredibly painful, playing a large amount of pain lands. You're running a 4-color mana base, 4 mana confluence is kind of necessary. This also interacts favorably with Primal Prayers as a combo thing, and also gives you a very option D of aggressively beating people down with Guide of Souls triggers. Birds of Paradise accelerates you into all of the different pieces. It also is a omnicolored mana dork. So 4-color mana base, having any option of mana you want is very helpful. In conjunction with Stalwart Realm Warden, Skyclave, or Soulherder even, being able to play any of these cards turn 2 can be a big deal. But I'll get into those later. For 2, we have Birthing Ritual. Birthing Ritual is a fantastic card. Between the main deck and the sideboard, you have silver bullets for most of the format, and this helps you find the relevant pieces of your deck. This also, importantly, is one of, I believe, 3 different cards that trigger Satoru. Satoru triggers off of Birthing Ritual, Satoru triggers off of Primal Prayers, and Satoru triggers off of Extraction Specialist. I'm sorry, 4 cards, Soulherder as well. Prosperous Innkeeper, similar to Birds of Paradise, gives you more mana, lets you play Primal Prayers turn 3, and also helps fix your mana as well. And it's also an important part in conjunction with Guide of Souls as to why we can play such an incredibly painful mana base and still, make things work. Wall of Blossoms is a very recent addition to this version of the deck. It's been played a lot. Usually you want Chittering Skullspeaker, which is a black and colorless card. However, the life loss from that, despite it being a much more powerful draw engine, meant that I was losing more games than I felt comfortable, despite having 8 main deck life gain options. So I put a Wall of Blossoms in because it blocks a little bit better, and it also still draws cards. And it's just handy. Satoru, the Infiltrator I mentioned, is an absolute beast in this deck. This is part of what makes the deck run. It triggers off of Birthing Ritual, Soulherder, Extraction Specialist, and Primal Prayers, and in conjunction with Guide of Souls, in the coming clips you'll see, I win the game on the spot. Oftentimes you play Primal Prayers into Guide of Souls into Satoru, and then every single creature you play lets you draw 1 or more cards. And you usually just flip your entire deck, or as much of your deck as you want to, into play, and win on the spot. You don't care about playing 4 of these because he works in multiples. If you play a Satoru with 1 in play off Primal Prayers, you get 2 draws. 1 for the one you just played, and 1 for the one in play, even with the Legend Rule triggering immediately. So you want to maximize on him as much as possible. Extraction Specialist functions very well with Birthing Ritual. You can pod any of your 2 drops into that and then get them back immediately. Skyclave Apparition is a hell of a card. It basically answers every non-land, non-token permanent CMC4 or less, which is, realistically speaking, the vast majority of permanents played by competitive decks in this particular format. Stalwart Realm Warden is absolutely cracked in half. This card, when it ETBs, the next non-creature spell target opponent casts costs 2 more to cast. There's 2 things to realize. 1, these stack, so if you have 2 triggers, it costs them 4 more to cast. And 2, it says the next non-creature spell. There is no turn requirements. So in conjunction with Soulherder, or getting more of these into play, you usually lock your opponents out of playing any non-creature spells for the rest of the game. Once you stack enough up, they will never get the chance to play a non-creature spell again. Glasspool Mimic and Boggart Trawler and Witch Enchanter are all MDFC lands that also happen to have either direct ETB, things that are helpful in this deck, or will copy any of your existing stuff. This is a great card to just have another copy of whatever interactive piece that you want to have in play. We play 23 total lands, and these are the last 3 because you don't want to have a large amount of lands. I play 1 plains because if you look, the most impactful pieces are white, and I have a lot of double white pips in this deck. I think that covers the main deck. In the sideboard, you have 4 Fragment Realities. These will never ever change unless we get a more efficient somehow version of this effect. This is required to hit hate cards like Hushbringer. The entire deck operates on ETBs, so you need to be able to beat cards like Hushbringer or Elish Norn when they come in and out of the meta. So having 4 of those is a necessity. Juggernaut Peddler was previously the greatest interactive piece we could play in the deck. However, Realm Warden has supplanted him quite a bit. But he's still definitely good to bring in extra copies of, and he's also a 2-drop. So a lot of the times you'll see me intentionally sacrifice him or aggressively attack with him to bring him back with Extraction Specialists for more ETBs. The Juggernauts don't matter at all because we have Skyclave Apparitions, Witch Enchanters, and obviously Soulherder gets much larger than the Juggernauts usually do. So giving them Juggernauts doesn't matter at all. Surgical Extractions are necessary to combat some of the more aggressive combo graveyard decks. We have Boggart Trawler, and different versions of the deck have had other ETB creatures that get rid of the graveyard. But to do that at instant speed, you need to have Ephemerate or be casting from Prayers or Coco. It basically need more than 1 card. So just having 1 card, Surgical, and it's free, they never see it coming. It's a very good card to have against them. White Orchid Phantom is a very strong body. It is a 2/2 with flying. There's only 1 other flyer in main deck, and that's Birds of Paradise. Having flying blockers can be a big deal. And more importantly, it destroys lands. Against decks like Mardu Sacrifice or 4-color Sam Combo or whatever flavor of colorless crap that's out there at the time, this is a Stone Rain that's repeatable with Soulherder. So you lock people out of the game by just flickering White Orchid with Soulherder, and they never get more than 1 land in play. Very, very strong card. I have 1 Skyclave Apparition in the board. We have 3 main. This was previously a 4 of all the time, and it's really a kind of universal catch-all. It's a very good card against any kind of permanent base stuff. The deck list is just so tight, and I can't really. There's nothing I'd want to cut here, and that was the 1 cut I had to make. You could go back and forth between these if you don't have 4 Realm Wardens. That was what happened. I cut the 4th to put the 4th of that in. And then Reflector Mage is the final. We have 2 of those in the sideboard, mostly because against most decks, Skyclave Apparition does everything you want to, but there is 1 very important deck in the meta that does play more than 4 CMC permanents and happens to be competitive and thus seen often, and that's Mono Green Devotion. Reflector Mage lets you bounce the big elementals they play and other larger creatures that you may find. And let's get into some matches here. This hand seems relatively reasonable. Has a Soulherder turn 2 as well as Realm Warden for a pretty solid lock. Definitely a keeper. Fortunately, opponent immediately has the answer for the bird, so no turn to Realm Warden for a hard lock. They mouse over my lands to kind of suss out what I'm on. Mardu and Amped Raptor makes me think this is either some kind of auras or Mardu Sacrifice. We see the Goblin Bombardment and immediately know it's Mardu Sacrifice. Fortunately, we are missing a second white source, so no Realm Warden. We play Soulherder just to get it out there, If they waste removal on it, maybe we can dump some stuff with Primal Prayers next turn. Fortunately, they flip into a Johnny, Trap Finder, and it's about as good a start as they're ever going to possibly get. One thing to note here is when you flip a Johnny, he counts as being exiled. So Soulherder does in fact trigger on the exiling bit. I've had a couple Mardu Sac opponents miss that. Here it doesn't really matter because he has plenty of things to sack. Soulherder gets removed. And I'm looking to flip something good off the top. I don't. It's another card that I can cast, but not really going to do anything. So we're going to scoop that up game one. This is Mardu Sacrifice, which we know plays 0 basics usually. They have a very greedy mana base similar to us. We don't care about locking necessarily immediately with Birds of Paradise, and we're a little bit less concerned about playing Max Guide of Souls for combo. So I think that's where we're going to put it. This is a pretty solid. We have a White Orchid and a Satoru. Unfortunately, White Orchid is not a human, but with Satoru, Primal Prayers as a follow-up, I think it's pretty doable. Should be in a good spot here. Didn't draw a second white source, so we must name Spirit. Luckily, Soulherder is also a Spirit, so it does. We're not naming Cavern. I've had to name Cavern on birds sometimes, and that's always feels bad, but not right here. As expected, ding ding, winner winner chicken dinner. No basics. Oh, look at that. It's a follow-up one. Looks like Glasspool is a land. This game we need to keep playing towards Primal Prayers. With Primal Prayers, Guide of Souls, and Satoru in hand, there's not really any way for opponent to win, even if we don't lock them out, which we immediately do here. We play a Soulherder, and the opponent immediately recognizes he's not going to get to play lands, so the game is over. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Game 3 it is. This hand's a little bit sketchy, no combo, no nothing, but we do have a lot of life gain, which is important. We have all of our colors, and more importantly, we have Realm Warden, which the only real impactful card is Goblin Bombardment in this matchup. The rest of their deck doesn't really compete with us. I always say hello to Thoughtseize. I love when people bring in Thoughtseize against me. Usually it's a bad choice because if you're familiar with Jund sideboarding from years ago, you don't bring in Thoughtseize in mid-range mirrors, which usually mid-range decks play it. He's more of a combo deck, so it's kind of forgivable. I still don't think it's a particularly great card to play in the matchup. He has the mana base for Juggernaut Peddler. I think he should be doing that, but here we get to slam a White Orchid Phantom. We immediately take the white source because we don't want him to land in a Johnny here. He goes digging for more lands. Amp Raptor also has first strike, so we're not blocking. We have a life gain card in hand. And we rip a Soulherder off the top, which is, well, enough said. We got the White Orchid Phantom lock. Opponent could have some kind of one mana interaction. They have exactly one turn before Realm Warden comes down. Once Realm Warden comes down, they don't get to play the game. Looks like they either didn't have a land or didn't have one mana interaction, so the game is immediately over. We're on the play, pretty good. We have Realm Warden and Soulherder and Satoru in play. pretty easy keep. We can lock them out of playing non-creature spells, and we can also potentially draw a fair amount of cards. Tamiyo, so this makes it maybe Affinity, maybe some kind of wizards. We'll find out. I play Satoru because I'm assuming they may have removal of some kind. I'd rather Satoru get hit than Innkeeper if it is wizards. They play a black-white land, which makes me think Esper, which makes me think maybe some kind of Oculus deck. They do immediately have removal, and they play the discard removal and pitch a Psychic Frog, which makes it definitely an Oculus deck. We play a Realm Warden to remove their ability to play Spell Snare or more removal. And at this point, because they cycled, they can no longer play non-creature spells this turn, so we're going to go ahead and slam Innkeeper plus Soulherder, start gaining life, and lock them out of playing non-creature spells the rest of the game. Innkeeper is also handy because it gives us an additional body to block Psychic Frog, so they can't immediately get draw value off of that. We don't want to put Realm Warden or Soulherder in front of them because they can pitch they have 3 cards in hand, so they can definitely outgrow it to the point that it would kill Soulherder or Realm Warden. And we don't want to trade one or both of those cards just for their 2 mana play. They swing in. I briefly debate trading my board. Bad idea. Curious why he didn't make it flying. We block so they don't get the card draw. And then he starts pitching cards, which is kind of strange. We understand the Vanishing Verse. He's never going to cast that. Psychic Frog is a little bit of a confusion as to why he would be pitching that. And it's the rare Hardcast Oculus. Getting Guide of Souls is good. It means we can get more card draw down. We have more bodies to pot into things, which we're definitely going to play pot here. And very importantly, Birds is a flying blocker for the Oculus. We continue to play Realm Warden, stack up Realm Warden triggers. Nothing else makes sense to really flicker. Gain some life. Look at this, and I definitely want to get more life gain in play. Interesting note, this is exactly why we play Soulherder and not Philia. Philia would be doing absolutely nothing on this board, whereas Soulherder continually grows larger, keeping a lot of his cards in check. And then also on top of that, we get to continue to flicker our pieces and accrue incremental value. Opponent attacks in. I choose not to block. I think I'm going to be able to outlife gain this, and with only a couple cards in his hand, he's already getting card advantage with Diviner of Fates and Psychic Frog, so him getting a little bit more by drawing cards by hitting in, not as big a deal as you think. Unfortunately, we are proceeding to just draw lands, not doing much. Realm Warden's the only one to flicker to gain more life. We don't need more mana. Obviously, we're just trying to gain life and stay alive, as he does have a very sizable board. I look at this, think about it. We definitely need to be aware we're at 12 life with no blockers for Oculus. He has 3 cards in the graveyard, so Psychic Frog can get flying next turn. It's definitely a bit of a trickiness. I don't think he's going to be stupid enough to swing in with a ground pounder, so I decide I want to keep the Innkeeper because Innkeeper pods into additional 3-drops, and we're not attacking, so we can drop the Guide of Souls and put in a Birds of Paradise, because we have to have that flying blocker. Otherwise, we just lose the game. opponent is getting very good flips off their Oculus, getting to aggressively Diviner. Psychic Frog is obviously growing quite rapidly. Usually Soulherder after a couple triggers is bigger than the board, and you don't have anything to worry about. In this particular situation, not an option. He swings in and doesn't seem to give it flying, which is pretty good, but then he does remember to keep it flying, so we can't throw an Innkeeper or the Realm Warden in front of it, and we're forced to block with the birds. You flip a Skyclave. Auto Tapper always wants to hit lands. Every point of life may matter here because the opponent's board is getting wider, and Skyclave does leave behind illusion tokens. We immediately go for the Psychic Frog because that's really the main threat here as far as getting them additional crude damage. We can take a hit or two from a 5 Oculus, but a Frog that's getting aggressively larger and can fly is not something that we can really deal with. Also, Frog is 2 mana, Oculus is 3, giving them a 2/2 versus a 3/3 to swing in is means the difference between Realm Warden getting to first strike block or not. I look here, I want to start drawing more cards because opponent has a large amount of cards and I don't. I can't get rid of the Apparition, that's too strong. I also want to make sure I'm gaining life with Innkeeper. And I look and realize I've got 4 triggers, that's 8 mana. Opponent's not casting any non-creature spells the rest of the game, so we flip the Realm Warden for a Infiltrator, which draws a card, unfortunately draws a land. Opponent rips another Oculus on their flip. Fantastic job on them of drawing well. We have no flying blocker, back down to 6. We are blessed with a Birds of Paradise, another flying blocker should we need it. We get to draw a card off of Satoru here and remove the Oculus, grow our Soulherder even larger, and then we get to immediately draw another card off of Satoru. Minor misplay here. I go for an extraction play, thinking that I saw the extra Satoru and was thinking sacrifice Satoru for some reason. I should have sacked Innkeeper here because one important distinction is that you do not get the draw off Satoru if he's not already in play when the new creature enters on a ritual. So if you sack as part of that, you don't get the draw, and you also don't get to block with the creature you bring back with Extraction Specialist until you either flicker Specialist with Soulherder or flicker the card that you got. Opponent has a Plagon, solid card, it draws lots of cards. Not going to make a big difference here. It does flip the Tamiyo, but we're pretty firmly in the driver's seat, it feels like at this point. With the Extraction Specialist, we'll be able to bring back plenty of stuff. Opponent Desperation attacks in. I'm concerned about them flipping another Oculus or something stupid, so I figure I might as well hit the face down card. And at this point, nothing's flying that I'm worried about anyway, so I might as well block the largest thing with Birds of Paradise, and I don't want to lose anything else. If I had potted the Innkeeper instead of Satoru, I would have been able to block one of the 2/2s with Satoru, which is a 2/3, but he was the one brought back by Specialist, so no luck there. Funny end of turn interaction. Opponent has to discard to hand size. Diviner of Fates does trigger off of that, so he has to discard even more. I debate whether to play Wall of Blossoms first or play Silent Clearing and draw first. Guide of Souls is a solid pickup. I'm slightly concerned about life because Plagon has an activated ability that can let Tamiyo effectively swing in for 3, which is minor concern. and opponent scoops it up as they realize they're not going to get there. I look, always check for basics. I see one basic in play. He has an island. Probably not an easy way to punk him out. We know Realm Warden is very strong. I briefly debate Surgical because we saw the Unearths and its Oculus. Juggernaut Peddler is a fantastic card to beat up on anyone trying to, tempo or play a lower curve like this deck. Skyclave, as we saw there, is a big deal for hitting their stuff. We cut all the birds because we don't really need to be super aggressive and fast here. We want to curve out peddlers and stuff, so we're less concerned about immediately locking them out of the game. As we saw, we can't just beat them on creatures or non-creatures. They operate on both axes, so we have to have that combination. This seems pretty straightforward. Juggernaut plus Soulherder plus Birthing Ritual. Pretty solid there. 4 lands is a little bit high, but with a 4-color mana base, if you can cast your cards, sometimes it's what you want. Opponent holds up mana here, which makes me a little bit concerned, but I figure with Satoru, I'll be able to grind through any kind of disruption if he has counter spells or whatever for things. Opponent cycles Unearth, which is not at all what we expected. We get to snipe Oculus here. Opponent is able to immediately cycle the Juggernaut with Diviner of Fates for a more relevant piece. And again, Ophelia would not be able to attack in here. This is why we play Soulherder. No need to attack, we just continually shred their hand with Juggernaut Peddler. I think about Plagon, drawing more cards, not a big deal. I have a Birthing Ritual in my hand and I don't want them to exile the Birthing Ritual. I can play Satoru plus Ritual next turn. Psychic Frog, pretty handy. We know that was the top deck. So now we know they have Plagon plus 1 unknown creature in their hand. I'm not quite sure why they shocked in the white-blue mana there. There's nothing they can do with that. Maybe they were trying to bluff, but I know how cards and the game work. I briefly debate playing Waterlogged Grove, just because I can sack it in a future turn to draw cards. We're getting to the point where we have plenty of mana and we don't need, what we really need is more card draw. So Satoru plus Ritual feels pretty good. Again, can't attack in. They have cards that are pretty good there. So we either take Plagon here, or we take the card that they just got off of the Diviner Cycle. Oh, it's another Oculus. So now we have 2 of their 4 Oculus down. And we flip into the Skyclave Apparition, which feels pretty good. We have a backup Satoru, so we are fine losing the additional card draw off of that. No more Psychic Frog, pretty handy. They're able to cycle their Juggernaut Peddler 1 more time to try and draw something good. Diviner of Fates can no longer attack in because of Soulherder. They still have the ability to draw plenty of removal here to extend the game here. Not sure why they shocked in that land. So Plagon draws some cards, pretty good. If they attack with Diviner of Fates, I will not be blocking because they could trade Diviner for Soulherder with Plagon's activated ability. My mana base is getting a little bit painful, and I'm not finding any kind of stuff. I play Satori to try and draw out any spell snares or counter spells before I play the second Soulherder. And at this point, while my life total keeps getting lower, I'm less concerned about what's going on. We were able to begin interacting. I removed Divine Fates because it gives them more card advantage, and Plagon on his own doesn't really do anything. Opponent hesitates here, which makes me think maybe they have some kind of fatal push. They'll definitely respond with Juggernaut Peddler. Maybe they'll hit a Soulherder. Nope, they choose to go for Skyclave, but nothing on the field is really concerning. Our Soulherders are much larger than everything there. Realm Warden plus Wall of Blossoms is going to lock the game up in a second, and yeah, just too much value. Pretty easy, grind them out. Alright, this hand, not keepable for obvious reasons. This one's much better. We got turn 1 birds, we got turn 2 interaction with Skyclave, we got Birthing Ritual plus Innkeeper. Seems pretty reasonable. Tricky to pick what to put back. I think Guide of Souls here were more grindy, interactive, but then we decided at the last second, maybe Innkeeper. It's a tricky. We want the Innkeeper because the Innkeeper gives us an option to pod better with Birthing Ritual. Opponent appears to be on Affinity. Retrofitter Foundry, pretty obvious there. Flips into an Ornithopter, so we definitely want to go ahead and immediately remove the Emery. We don't want them playing a second Retrofitter Foundry or more Ornithopters. Opponent is probably holding up a Rebuke here. So we're going to go ahead and cast Birthing Ritual. We'd rather that get countered than Soulherder or Primal Prayers. Opponent didn't do anything, so we'll just go ahead and do Extraction Specialist. And that gets the Soulherder, Extraction Specialist, Birthing Ritual engine online. So we'll continue to get value non-stop from the Birthing Ritual. Opponent is now seemingly tapped out. Feels pretty good. They drew some cards, but that doesn't matter. Definitely smash that Primal Prayers. Everything is castable. Go ahead and take care of that Retrofitter Foundry before any damage can be done. Pretty easy pod here into Satoru. It's a 2-drop, so we can pod the 1-drop, and now we start drawing cards. If we draw any creature here, we could have comboed off. Sadly, we did not. But at this point, it's very, very difficult for us to possibly lose the game. We have full value. We have a Satoru and Guide and Primal Prayers active, and there's not really anything opponent can do. I have a Spell Bomb, but I mean, what's that gonna do? Cast, gain a bunch of life, draw a card. Oh, look. Draw 2 cards. The nice thing is every single one of these cannot be disputed at all. Even if they had a dispute, we have 6 mana up. And opponent scoops it up. Enough said. Definitely basic check, plenty of basics. This is mono blue. Really the only thing we care about in this matchup is Kappa Cannoneer. So Skyclave Apparition helps, cut down on their Thopter bullshit. We check for Luris just to be sure, but then we realized they had Thought Monitor, so do we want Juggernaut Peddler to hit it? Maybe, maybe not. It's tricky. You always want to board out birds. You feel like you want to board out birds, but birds is kind of, it matters in this particular matchup. We want to be fast because they can be very fast. We shave one, we shave a bunch of Realm Wardens because most of what we care are creature spells. It's nice not to have to second guess Rebuke, but really locking them out of playing non-creature spells doesn't really matter in this matchup. Kappa Cannoneer is what matters in this matchup. This is pretty damn solid. We got Ramp, we got Reflector Mage, which is our answer to Kappa, Birthing Ritual, enough said. Look at that, Primal Prayers. We got the Wombo combo. Opponent does in fact flip the Tameo, but at the same time they appear to have tapped out, so always feels good to have my opponent tap out for me. I consider whether I want to slam Soulherder here or if I want to just kind of get Birthing Ritual down. It's very, very, very tricky. We also want to make sure we get Primal Prayers down too. So it's very, very tricky. I reconsider I probably should have played Glasspool Mimic here and then gone for one of the 2 drops. Glasspool Mimic into like Wallow Blossoms would have been perfectly fine here, but I decided, once you get Soulherder down, I mean, you want to get your value engine going. We have a Reflector Mage, we have a Wallow Blossoms. We can definitely get there here. Either Spell Bomb, little bit tricky. Now they have interaction for stuff and we don't happen to have a Skyclave to force Spell Bomb. We try to see if we can get him to slip up here. This is, at the end of the day, a Platinum player. May or may not be, particularly solid. You never know. He doesn't fall for it, doesn't panic. So we play Wall of Blossoms to try and bait out something. Not falling for it, but at least we get to draw some value. Now we have a backup Birthing Ritual, so really, who cares? Opponent pauses, opponent thinks. We read the Rebuke, very obvious, not really much to say there. We'll take our card draw. Everyone loves card draw. And of course, we have the Primal Prayers potentially for next turn. Still no Satoru, still no guide, so that's a little unfortunate, but Skyclave would also be great. Opponent playing all the fun affinity flyers. It's a lot of artifacts he's touching. Could it be the only card that matters in this matchup? Oh, there it is. Everybody's favorite Kappa Cannoneer. Well, there's the Satoru, so we definitely windmill slam this Primal Prayers and hope they don't have exactly Rebuke. They did not have Rebuke. That feels pretty damn good. Still pausing makes us wonder, is that either Spellbomb pause? Matter of fact, it probably is. Not really the biggest fan of this. We have exactly one more card that we can play here. because we weren't able to draw into what we needed. Opponent messed up a little bit here. They did this at the end of our second main, which I guess they kind of had to stop the trigger, but we could respond. I want to keep the Witch Enchanter because this is, in fact, you know, the matchup where it matters. We are playing against Affinity, lots of artifacts. And then we do, in fact, draw Guide of Souls. Unfortunate little punish there. We could have tried to play one more creature to draw or something to see what we could do before to try and force something, and then shock in Witch Enchanter to play Guide of Souls there, but not too much we can do. Opponent drew you know, half their deck as they do with Tamiyo, and Kappa Cannoneer is going to be pretty spooky. We'll see how many artifacts you can put into play here. He also has 2 flyers that can both attack, and we unfortunately had to tap the birds, and didn't really blink the birds. I wasn't thinking about it mattering, blocking 3. The Kappa Cannoneer is really the main concern. But we're not too concerned as far as Spell Bomb, pretty disruptive, can cause problems for Guide of Souls or the Soulherder. If they know how to interact at exactly the right moment, they can stop, you know, they can get Guide of Souls back in my hand before I get more triggers off of it. Second, Kappa Cannoneer is pretty good. Opponent's probably wondering why I haven't scooped. I have the full combo potential in my hand. At this point, there is 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 damage represented in play, and opponent has lethal if they use Retrofitter Foundry to sack Ornithopters. I thought they were doing that here. Maybe they messed up, maybe they didn't think it through, who knows, but we have the opportunity now to win. Suspiciously, they're holding up 1 blue mana, which makes me think they are sandbagging a Rebuke. So I kind of have to think here, how do I trigger? Soulherder obviously can flicker and trigger, but if I don't play something now and they use that Spell Bomb to bounce my Soulherder, it's just not going to be a good time. Ideally, I want to have 4 extra mana for this Reflector Mage to be able to bounce Kappa Cannoneer, but you know, we see, do they have Rebuke? That is exactly what they're holding up, but now we know we don't have to worry about having to hold up mana, or having to worry about the either Spell Bomb hitting Soulherder. We keep Enchanter in our hand because it's not a land and it will eventually be valuable. The nice thing about this is Soulherder doesn't have to attack into this. Another point for Soulherder over Philia. We're able to trigger and hopefully combo off here on this end step. So opponent has 19 odd damage and a bunch of cards in hand. So we're basically trying to see how we want to stack this. We should be able to easily outlife gain this. We have 1 Guide of Souls in play, we have 3 more in the deck, and then a whole bunch of Prosperous Innkeepers. And technically speaking, if we hit 3 Prosperous Innkeepers without fizzling, we'll be able to get our second Reflector Mage and start bouncing Kappa Cannoneers. So this is where Satoru is great. Even if you draw multiples, you draw 2 cards. Unfortunately, we are in our end step. We had to be in our end step to get that additional trigger just to get Guide of Souls doing anything. So more Soulherders doesn't exactly buy us anything, but more Satoru's draws us 2 cards. And we know we have Extraction Specialist, which we can use to draw more Satoru's. we're really just digging. We need any of our remaining Guided Souls or Innkeepers. There's 7 of them in the deck, so how unlucky can you be? The opponent decides to stop interacting here. Makes sense. We want to keep the one that's not brought back, that draws 3 cards, and we also want to be able to block with it just on the off chance that we get the opportunity to block. Somehow we're still flooding out and not drawing any of the 7 cards that matter. It's left in our deck. There we go. There is an Innkeeper. There's a Realm Warden. Realm Warden, again, not really relevant here. None of their non-creature spells matter. Another double draw. There's a Guide of Souls, a little bit late to the party, but there's Reflector Mage, so now we just need to draw 2 more Innkeepers. We're checking to see how many are left we have in the deck. Should be fine. So now every creature we play gains us 3 life. We just need to keep drawing good stuff. Down to 3 creatures. Skyclave, Boggart, and Reflector Mage, which we don't want to play Reflector Mage until we've had the opportunity to actually hit what we're looking for, the Innkeepers, to bounce the Kappa Cannoneer. So we hit more Retrofitters to make sure they can't put more artifacts into play, ideally. Hit their graveyard. Emery doesn't really matter. We are unfortunately forced to play the Reflector Mage here. We check, yep, graveyard, there's 17 cards left in their deck. We figure bouncing their most aggressive flyer is the best we can do. There's the Innkeeper right on time after we would have needed it. And somehow we flood out. So we want to keep all the cards we can that would draw cards and kick things back off. So we pitch 1 spare Primal Prayers and a bunch of lands. We're hoping gating to 35 is going to be enough. Alright, the Kappas are unblockable. Opponent paid the 2 extra for Stalwart Realm Warden, obviously not a big deal. They get to draw a bit more. The important thing to know is we do have a flying blocker in birds, and if they do attack anything on the ground, we have a fair amount of life gain from Realm Wardens and Extraction Specialists to get us out of it. So opponent needs exactly 1 more artifact for lethal. They have 33 represented in unblockable Kappa Cannoneers right now. Obviously, we know about the Emery, but they punted last turn, so maybe they'll punt again. And maybe they won't even attack. Who knows? Maybe they're too intimidated by my massive board presence. They're still thinking. Which, to be fair, I could be representing any number of things with Primal Prayers, but who knows. Another Kappa Cannoneer, nothing we can do, and this is one of the edge cases where actually going infinite with a Sigardian Evangel would have been able to get me there. Not much to be said. Kappa Cannoneer is the only thing that matters. We got really unlucky with not finding any of our extra Guide of Souls or Innkeepers. I debate Peddler just to hit, steal it up from their hand before they can cast it. Think about, the spell bombs were what they were. I figure we can probably cut the Wall of Blossoms. We're not really blocking anything anyways. Being able to not worry about spell bombs or stuff could be very helpful with the Realm Wardens. And we're on the play for this third game, so we can potentially block them out a little bit quicker. This is slightly sketchy, but Birthing Ritual, as long as we're able to get somewhere, we should be good. There's no 2-drops in my hand, so I'm not going to stress over keeping Extraction Specialist. I have Soulherder, I have Ritual to find stuff, and I've got all of the relevant interactive pieces already in hand. So opponent is sneakily representing Metallic Rebuke. Do they have it? They probably do, but they did not counter Birds of Paradise, thankfully. That would have been pretty bad for us. Spell Bomb, kind of annoying. Don't have 2 3-drops. I figure I will play Skyclave first because that doesn't answer Kappa Cannoneer, but it does answer Tamiyo and Spell Bomb. There's the Rebuke that we read. Pretty straightforward. And there's the Kappa Cannoneer, and that's why we kept the Reflector Mage. We go ahead and start by Reflectoring Tamiyo. Next turn we have exactly 5 mana, so we can go Soulherder plus Ritual. Opponent, for some reason, chose not to attack. It's questionable. We drew the extra land, which gives us a conundrum. Do we cast Soulherder or Ritual first? The first spell can't be rebuked. The second one can. We decide on the Soulherder just to get that engine down against Reflector Mage. Turns out they didn't have anything anyways. Bit questionable not to just hit the Soulherder, I guess, but doesn't matter. Satoru feels pretty good. Pretty easy, sack the birds and the Satoru, start drawing cards. And Primal Prayers is big money. This means we have a Satoru in play already. Primal Prayers, we get to do fun stuff. And we have Birthing Ritual to potentially dig us into a Guide of Souls and draw more cards. Definitely not blocking. We like all the cards. And now we just kind of have to hope that they don't have exactly Rebuke. I play Primal Prayers because I want more creatures in my hand to draw cards. Again, we can jumpstart things by flickering Soulherder, so I could have curved Innkeeper into Primal Prayers, but again, you want to draw cards. Kind of think here. I think I want to keep drawing. I have the extra treasure in case I do flip exactly into Guide of Souls. We flipped exactly into Guide of Souls. I debate whether to attack, not really worth it. And now we're able to hopefully jumpstart the combo. And opponent realizes what's about to happen and they scoop it up. There's a chance we'd fizzle again, but it's very unlikely.